welcome to Untethered Yoga. I am Dr. Jordan Adams. I wanted to spend today going over 4 very basic poses, but very beneficial poses that everyone should be using, incorporating in your flows, and some of them are also great while you're in labor. So the first one is Child's Pose. This is a great rest pose if you ever find yourself out of breath in yoga, or maybe just something doesn't feel right, you need to drop out for a minute to reset. So I'll go over a few kind of tips for you to help make Child's Pose more accessible. I love this one because it's super versatile no matter what trimester in pregnancy you are. This is always a great pose to go to. So a couple of things is, if you're in the first trimester, you probably have enough room to do Child's Pose with your knees together and just kind of dropping forward. This is a great option if you are further along and that baby bump is getting in the way. Just take your knees wide, keep your feet together, keep your hips over your heels. Again, you can just kind of drop forward. You have a couple of options with your arms. You can either take your arms out wide, or you can have your hands back by the side. With your hands back by the side, you're just going to feel a nice kind of dropping sensation through the shoulders and the neck. With your arms stretched wide, you'll feel more opening through the chest and a nice stretch along the back. If you are having a hard time getting your forehead to the floor, you can always take a block or a book as a cheater's block if you're at home and have it under your forehead. That will give you a little more height so that you don't have to strain anything trying to reach the floor. Okay. This is a great pose. It takes a lot of pressure off of the low back. In labor, it can take the pressure of baby's head off of the cervix. What you want to do in labor when you go to this pose, and ideally you probably want to do this as a rest position between contractions, but you want to have your hips up off of your heels and it's going to drop down like this. Again, if you need to rest your head on something, you can do so. Another great prop to use for Child's Pose that I really like, and this has more of a restorative effect during yoga, is to have a bolster. You can just kind of have between your legs, and you can kind of melt forward onto. I'm actually move it forward a little bit. You can rest to one side, spend a little bit of time there, turn your head the other way. Again, spend a little bit of time there. I really liked actually hanging out in this position for a couple of minutes at a time while I was pregnant. It was a great way for me to reset, essentially. All right, so now moving forward. Another awesome pose that we do pretty much in every prenatal yoga class is going to be your cat-cow. Another term that I've heard for it is called spinal flossing because it puts movement into the spine. It's also a great way to start connecting movement and breath. So one thing real quick is with your cat-cow, you want to make sure that your alignment's good. So you want your shoulders, elbows, and wrists stacked all in line, and you want your hips over your knees. Now, if you have knee trouble and this isn't the most accessible pose for you, you can make some extra padding with your mat like so. Another thing too is if your wrists are sore, if you're getting some pregnancy carpal tunnel, you can actually roll your mat here and make a little bit of an elevated surface so that now instead of jamming into the wrist, you're creating a lift with the heel and putting your hands at more of an incline, okay? So with your cat-cow, it's, again, connecting movement to breath. So when you inhale, you drop the belly, expand through the heart, kind of broaden the collarbones. And when you exhale, you feel the navel draw in and up. Feel the shoulder blades stretch apart. Drop the crown of the head. If you're having low back pain, you don't have to go to the full cow. What you can do is inhale just kind of your table pose and exhale to cat. So when you inhale, you're either going to a neutral spine or you're going to full cow. When you exhale, you're rounding your back. Again, just keep in mind there are variations you can do for carpal tunnel, for wrist pain, or for your knees. If this is still kind of a challenge for you, you can also come to I would prop your hips up to make it more accessible. And come to an easy seat and cat-cow from here. Another way to do this is to have your feet out wide. Again, hold your knees. Inhale to pull your heart forward, and exhale to kind of rock back, okay? So a couple variations for cat-cow for you. Extremely effective way to integrate movement and breath and to just kind of loosen everything up from the neck all the way down to the low back. All right, so in line with that cat-cow would be spinal balance. I love this one because it's a great way to activate the transverse abdominis, which is going to be a phenomenal stabilizer for you guys. A strong TA essentially means a strong core. I know a lot of people think strong core means like those cut lines, those six-pack, the toned ab. We're not going for that while we're pregnant. We're going for functional strength. This is also a great way to strengthen the glute medius and glute minimus too. All right, so same rules apply. You want to have your hands under your elbows, under your shoulders, knees under your hips, and you really want to make sure that your back is a nice long line so you're not, I know with the weight of the baby it's kind of easy to sag the belly down. Activate the low back, draw the core in and up to bring your back into one nice long line. Alright, so I like to start with a hand first and then bring the leg into it. That's more for balance, especially if you have a belly bump that is probably closer to 30 weeks and more. All right, so a couple rules here. You want to make sure that with the back foot, you're active through that foot. So a lot of people kind of go passively into this pose. That's not going to do any good for functional strength. What you want to do is curl your toes in towards your shin, press the heel away, feel this sensation of wrapping the inner thigh in and up. And again, keep the core engaged. Reach the fingers forward on your opposite arm. At the same time, draw your kind of arm back into the shoulder socket. So you'll feel the contraction of the muscles right here. Hold for 3 to 5 breaths, and then you'll switch, okay? And you can do that a few times. All right. So one more pose I'm going to go over with you guys, and I love this one, but I'm going to give you guys a word of caution. Do not do this pose if you are 34 weeks in breech, because it essentially encourages baby to drop into that pelvic inlet and outlet. Another thing too is if you've got any hemorrhoids, if you have varicose veins, this is not a good pose to do, but I'll give you some variations that you can do. Now, if you are 34 weeks and over, baby is in a good position, head down, you're not struggling with hemorrhoids, Garland Pose or malasana pose is a wonderful way to get you kind of set up for labor. You can do this a couple of ways. You can use props, blocks, bolsters. You can do it without. Personally, when I was doing this at 35 and up, I preferred to have the blocks under me because it kind of pinched my inner thighs when I was doing it. So you'll have 2 blocks. That'll get your hips nice and high. You're going to drop into a squat. You want your knees tracking over your middle toes. So for some of you, your toes may be a little more forward. For some of you, your toes may be a little more out. It's kind of going to be an anatomical variation depending on your structure and your body, okay? All right, so from here, knees nice and wide, knees tracking over the middle toes, elbows come inside the knees, palms together at heart center, and kind of find length through the spine. This is a great way to also practice some of your Kegels, relaxing on the inhale, contracting on the exhale. So again, you can use this on a bolster too, you can do blocks. If you have it in your practice, you don't have to use anything. Now, if it's too hard for you to, well, let me show you this real quick. If it's too hard to do this pose with your heels down, because ideally you want to feel your heels grounding into the floor, you don't want so much of this toe off sensation. What you can do is, again, find a little bit of a lift through a mat or a towel or a blanket, something you can shove under your heels so that your heels can get that grounding sensation. Another variation of this pose that's great, we do this a lot in our classes, is going to be goddess. So your knees are nice and wide. Again, depending on where your toes are, it's going to be a little more of an individual variation in your practice and your body and your structure. But essentially, you're going to have your toes pointed somewhere out at a 45, knees over middle toes. You can have your hands out like so. You can draw your hands to heart center. Just anything to build strength in these inner thighs. At the same time, open up the inner thighs and the inner groin, okay? So if you are kind of at that 34-week and breech mark, I would probably just recommend sitting on your birthing ball or an exercise ball. You can have your knees wide if you would like, not as wide as a squat, of course. The goal of this is really just as a more of a stabilizing exercise, okay? I like to do pelvic circles here as well. Another great little thing for in labor. All right, so if you guys have any questions, I'm always accessible. Again, it's just kind of a little recap on some of my go-to poses for functionality, efficiency, and overall just feel good during pregnancy, all right? Thanks, guys. Have a good one.